The art world loves secrets and mysteries. There are always stories about rich people who buy paintings but never show their faces. For example, there was a very famous painting by Basquiat that was bought by someone nobody knows. There is also a hidden collector who owns half of Monet's water lilies. And in Paris, there is a very famous and very secret gallery owner known only as LM, whose real identity nobody has ever discovered. But I should know about secrets like this better than anyone, because I am one of those secrets. My name is Lucia Martinez, and this is the story of how the most powerful people in the art world slowly discovered that real talent can be hidden in plain sight, even in someone they used to ignore. The Bedford Hills Art Festival was exactly what you would expect from a rich suburb in Connecticut. Everything looked expensive and polished. People walked around wearing designer clothes, holding glasses of fancy wine, and talking loudly as if they were very important. It felt less like a small art fair and more like a tiny version of a famous museum, where everyone was trying to impress everyone else. I stood quietly behind my small booth. My booth was simple, with a hand-painted sign that said local artist, and a few paintings displayed carefully on wooden stands. My prices were modest, around $200 each, because I believed art should be shared, not locked away. As I worked, I noticed a crowd forming near the entrance. People started whispering, moving aside like someone very important had arrived. Then I saw her, Vivian Blackwood. She entered like she owned the entire world. She was dressed in an elegant designer outfit, wearing jewelry that sparkled even in the soft daylight. Her makeup was perfect, her posture was straight, and her expression showed complete confidence, like she believed she was better than everyone else in the room. Vivian Blackwood owned one of the most famous art galleries in New York City. In the art world, she was treated like royalty. People listened carefully when she spoke, even if she wasn't always right. She walked through the festival with a group of followers behind her, like she was leading a tour of importance. She stopped often to comment loudly on paintings, making sure everyone heard her opinion. "Oh, darling," she said to someone beside her, "you simply must see the new Rothman pieces I acquired. They are absolutely breathtaking. Of course, not everyone has the taste to understand them." Her voice carried across the festival area. Some people laughed softly, as if afraid not to agree with her. I kept painting calmly at my booth. I was working on a sunset painting. The sky was filled with warm oranges, soft pinks, and gentle purple tones blending together. It was peaceful work, something I did not rush. I believed art should feel honest, not forced. My booth was clearly the kind of booth Vivian would ignore. She believed only expensive galleries and famous artists mattered. Everything else, in her eyes, was just practice or hobby work. Soon she walked toward me. Her heels clicked loudly on the ground as she stopped in front of my booth. She looked at my paintings with a slight smile, as if she had already decided they were not important. "How charming," she said. Her voice had a sweet tone, but her eyes were sharp and judgmental. I looked up from my canvas and greeted her politely. "Hello. Thank you for visiting my booth. Would you like me to tell you about my work?" She waved her hand in the air as if brushing away dust. "Oh no, dear," she said. "I can already see what this is." She leaned slightly forward, looking at my paintings like she was examining something childish. "This is very enthusiastic," she continued, "but clearly not serious art. Real art takes years of training, elite connections, and true talent." She glanced at my price tags and gave a small laugh. $200, she said. "Well, not everyone is meant for the serious art world." Behind her, her followers chuckled politely, like they were trained to react to everything she said. I stayed calm. I had learned a long time ago not to react quickly to people like her. "Sometimes," I said gently, "people are surprised by what they like." Vivian smiled like she had won a small argument. "Sweetheart," she said, "I have spent 30 years discovering the finest artists in the world. I know talent when I see it. And this," she pointed at my paintings, "this is not it." Then she turned away like I no longer existed and moved on to the next booth, still speaking loudly about taste and quality. As she left, I noticed a young woman standing near her group. Her name was Amara Chin. I recognized her because I had quietly followed her early work. She had real talent. Her style was fresh, emotional, and unique. But now she was standing close to Vivian, listening carefully, like a student trying to learn from a strict teacher. Vivian had recently taken her under her wing, which sounded nice but often meant control in the art world. Amara looked at me for a moment and whispered quietly, "I'm sorry. Your work is actually very beautiful." I smiled warmly. Thank you. That means a lot. She smiled back, then quickly followed Vivian, who was already criticizing another artist nearby. What Vivian Blackwood did not know, what almost nobody in that entire festival knew, was that I was not just a small local artist. This booth, this festival, and these simple paintings were only a small part of my life. For the other 50 weeks of the year, I was someone else entirely. I ran one of the most powerful and secretive art galleries in the world, located in Paris. It was known only as Lucia, and its owner was known only by the initials LM. No one knew LM's real identity. Some people thought it was a man. Some thought it was a group of investors. Some even thought it was a myth created by the art world itself. But LM was real. And LM was me. The Lucia Gallery was founded by my grandfather. He was a quiet man who loved art deeply. He believed art was not just something to sell, but something to discover. He would travel to small towns and unknown cities, looking for artists who had no fame, no connections, and no chance in the traditional art world. He always said the same thing to me when I was young. Lucia, he would say, people will show you who they truly are when they think you are beneath them. Watch carefully. After he passed away, he left the gallery to me. But he also left me something more important, a way of thinking. He taught me how the art world really worked behind the beautiful galleries and expensive parties. It was not always about talent. Sometimes it was about power, money, and control. And that is why I chose to stay hidden. While I stood at my small booth in Connecticut, my real phone was constantly buzzing in my pocket. It was my Paris office. I already knew what they would say before I even checked. Vivian Blackwood had been trying for months to meet LM. She wanted to buy Lucia. To her, it was not just a gallery. It was a prize, a crown jewel she could add to her growing empire. She believed that if she controlled Lucia, she would control a large part of the modern art world. My team in Paris had told her many times that LM was not available for meetings. Still, she kept pushing. They asked me if I wanted to respond to her latest offer. I always said the same thing. Not yet, I would reply. Let her keep showing her intentions. Back at the festival, Vivian continued her performance. She stood near the refreshments area, surrounded by listeners, speaking loudly like she was giving a speech. The art world is changing, she said. Old ideas are fading. Only bold vision matters now. Then she smiled. I am currently in final talks to acquire a very exclusive gallery in Paris. The owner is mysterious, but everything has a price. I almost laughed quietly to myself. If only she knew she was talking about my gallery. My phone buzzed again. It was my director in Paris. Vivian Blackwood's team contacted us again, he wrote. They are claiming they have inside information about LM's identity. I stared at the message for a moment. Let them try, I thought. My identity was protected through layers of legal structures, companies, and trusts. Even if someone followed every financial trail, they would never find the real person behind LM. I typed back calmly. Let them keep searching. The afternoon passed slowly. I sold a few paintings to people who genuinely appreciated them. These were the kind of people who did not care about status. They simply liked what they saw, and that was enough. But Vivian kept returning to my booth again and again. Each time, she made sure to comment loudly. This brushwork is too loose, she said once, pointing at my painting. Another time she said, this is exactly what we try to avoid in serious collections. And every time, Amara followed behind her, quietly watching, slowly losing confidence in her own artistic voice. I had seen this pattern before many times. A young artist starts with a unique vision. Then someone powerful comes along and tells them how to change it. Slowly, their originality disappears, replaced by something marketable. By evening, I was packing up my paintings. The sun was beginning to set, and the festival was slowly becoming quieter. Vivian approached me one last time. Don't be discouraged, she said, pretending to be kind. Not everyone is meant for greatness. I carefully wrapped one of my sunset paintings in protective paper. Sometimes, I said softly, the most interesting art comes from unexpected places. She smiled, not understanding my words at all. Then she placed a business card on my table. It was thick, expensive, and decorated with gold lettering. If you ever want to see real art, she said, you are welcome to visit my gallery next week. It is invite only, but I can make an exception for someone like you. She smiled as if she had just offered me a great gift. I picked up the card and nodded politely. Thank you, I said. I would be happy to learn. She walked away satisfied, believing she had impressed me. That night, I returned not to a small apartment, but to a large, quiet penthouse in Manhattan. It had wide glass windows, modern art on the walls, and a view of the city lights stretching endlessly into the distance. This was not a life Vivian would ever imagine for me. I reviewed reports from Lucia. Everything was ready for our next major exhibition. A new artist from Brazil was about to be introduced, and the art world was already beginning to talk about it. My phone rang again. Paris. Vivian's team is becoming more aggressive, my director said. They are now claiming they can expose LM. I paused for a moment. Then I said, it is time she learns the truth. Arrange a meeting. A few days later, I arrived at Vivian Blackwood's exclusive gallery opening. The event was everything I expected. Wealthy guests filled the space, drinking champagne, laughing softly, and pretending to understand complex modern art. Vivian saw me arrive and walked over quickly. You actually came, she said with a fake smile. I suppose even simple tastes can grow over time. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. I am always open to learning, I said calmly. Then I turned my attention to the main exhibition wall. And what I saw made me pause. Several paintings by Amara Chin were displayed there. But they did not look like the Amara I knew. They looked changed, altered, controlled. And in that moment, I realized Vivian had not just been shaping opinions. She had been reshaping artists themselves. The strong and wild feeling in her original art had been changed over time. It was no longer the same free and messy expression it once was. Instead, it had been carefully polished, cleaned, and reshaped so that it would look more attractive to rich buyers and serious collectors. Every rough edge that once showed emotion had been softened. Every bold stroke that once showed personality had been adjusted to fit what the market wanted. Yes, we've been working on improving her style, Vivian said proudly, standing in the middle of the elegant gallery. Her voice carried confidence, as if she had done something very important and wise. We are making her work more suitable for serious collectors. Her original pieces were too uncontrolled. They were not refined enough for high-level buyers. She said it as if uncontrolled was a bad thing, like creativity itself needed to be fixed. Is that what the artist wanted? I asked quietly, watching the paintings on the wall. Vivian's smile tightened just a little, but she did not lose her confidence. Artists need guidance, she said firmly. They need someone with vision to shape their talent. Not everyone understands the business side of art. Talent alone is not enough. It must be directed properly so it can succeed in the real world. She spoke like she was helping someone, like she was saving art from being wasted. But she had no idea who she was really talking to, or what truth she was standing in front of. I slowly walked through the gallery. Everything around me was carefully designed. The lighting was soft and expensive. The walls were clean and white. The paintings were placed in perfect positions, as if each one was part of a business plan instead of a feeling. It was clear that Vivian had arranged everything to attract wealthy buyers and create maximum profit. The prices next to the artwork were extremely high, even for Manhattan standards. It was not just art anymore. It was luxury branding. Amara stood near her displayed work. She looked uncomfortable, like she did not fully belong in the space she was standing in. Her dress was elegant, but it did not feel like her. It looked like something chosen for her by someone else, something meant to match the gallery's image rather than her personality. When Vivian turned away for a moment, I noticed Amara glance down at her small sketchbook inside her purse. Her eyes softened when she looked at it. That sketchbook probably held her original drawings, the raw, emotional, honest art she used to create before everything changed. That was the kind of work that first made me notice her talent. I stepped closer to her quietly. Quite a transformation, I said gently. Amara gave a small, tired smile, but it did not reach her eyes. Vivian says this is what sells, she replied softly. She says my original style was too unmarketable. Her voice sounded like she was repeating something she had heard many times. And what do you think? I asked her. She hesitated. Her eyes moved around the room nervously, as if she was afraid someone might hear her real answer. Then she whispered, I miss my old work. But this is my big chance, right? Vivian says she is going to acquire Lucia Gallery in Paris. She promised me I would get my own show there once the deal is done. There was hope in her voice, but also confusion and doubt. I looked at her carefully. Interesting, I said. And if someone offered you a show where you could display your true style, not this version shaped by others, what would you choose? Before she could answer, Vivian suddenly appeared beside us like she had been watching from a distance. Amara, darling, she said brightly. The Hendersons want to discuss your evolution as an artist. Please tell them how I have helped you develop a more sophisticated approach. Her words sounded sweet, but they carried control underneath. Amara immediately straightened up, like she had switched roles. "Yes, of course," she said quickly. And just like that, she was taken away. I watched them walk off, then quietly checked my phone. A message had arrived from my Paris director. Everything was ready for tomorrow's meeting. Vivian's team had been calling constantly, insisting they had information and pressure tactics that could force a sale. I smiled slightly. Perfect. Everything was falling into place. The next day, I arrived at Vivian's office 15 minutes early. The building was modern and expensive, full of glass walls and silence that made everything feel important. Her assistant greeted me, clearly confused by my presence. "I'm sorry," she said carefully, "but Mrs. Blackwood is preparing for an extremely important meeting. The owner of Lucia Gallery is finally—" "I know," I interrupted softly. "That's why I am here." Her eyes widened immediately. She did not understand what I meant at first, but then something clicked in her expression. She quickly stepped away and went inside Vivian's office. Through the closed door, I could hear fast, nervous voices. People were speaking urgently, trying to understand what was happening. At exactly 10 a.m., the door opened. Vivian stepped out first. Her face was tense and red with anger, like she had just been forced into a situation she could not control. "What is this?" she demanded sharply. "Is this some kind of joke? Where is LM?" I calmly adjusted my suit. It was simple but perfectly tailored, the kind of suit Vivian herself would wear. "Hello, Vivian," I said. She froze for a second, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You," she said slowly. "But you are just a local amateur artist." I finished her sentence for her. Interesting how assumptions can be so powerful, isn't it? Her office suddenly felt different. It was filled with her achievements, photos with famous artists, awards, newspaper clippings, and expensive paintings that showed her success. Everything was designed to prove her importance. But now it all looked like decoration around a misunderstanding. On her desk, I noticed a folder labeled Lucia Acquisition. I picked it up casually and looked at it. "This is impossible," she said quickly, her voice shaking slightly. "You cannot be. Lumer is the most prestigious gallery in Paris." "Yes," I said calmly. "It is owned by LM. And LM is me, Lucia Martin." For a moment, Vivian could not speak. She looked at me like her mind was refusing to accept what her eyes were seeing. At the art festival, my paintings were simple and honest. I never tried to make them look rich or perfect. I created them just like my grandfather taught me, honestly, without pressure, and without worrying about what sells. He always believed that real art comes from joy, not business. I sat down across from Vivian. "Now," I said softly, "let's talk about your so-called leverage." Her face tightened again. "We found some irregularities," she said quickly, "in Lucia's early acquisitions. Strange purchases. Unusual records." "You mean the artworks my grandfather bought directly from unknown artists?" I asked. "The same artists who later became famous? Everything is fully documented and legal." I took out my phone and showed her the official records. Vivian's face slowly turned pale as she looked at them. "I am curious," I said calmly. "How exactly did you get your information?" Her voice became quiet. We investigated. That kind of unauthorized investigation can cause serious problems in the art world," I said gently. She swallowed hard. Then I continued. "But I am more interested in something else. Amara." At the mention of her name, Vivian straightened slightly. "What about her?" "I have been watching her work," I said. Her original style was full of promise. But lately it has changed into something shaped by what you think sells. "I helped her," Vivian said quickly. "I made her work more successful." "No," I replied calmly. "You made her less herself." I placed a folder on the desk. Inside were Amara's original drawings. They were powerful, emotional, and full of life. "This is her real talent," I said. "This is what people should see." Vivian shook her head. "You can't do that. She is under contract with me." "Yes," I said. "A contract that forces her to hide her true voice. That is something the public would be very interested in." Her confidence started to break. Her hands tightened slightly as she realized she was no longer in control of the situation. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "Nothing from you," I said. "Lucia is not for sale. It never was." I stood up. "But I will be hosting a new exhibition soon," I continued. "And Amara's real work will be part of it." "You are stealing my artist," she said sharply. "No," I corrected her. "I am giving her a choice. The same choice every artist deserves, the freedom to be real." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back one last time. "Oh," I added. "Next time you see a small artist at a local festival, remember this. Real talent does not always come with a famous name or expensive frame." After that day, everything in the art world slowly began to change. Vivian's attempt to take control of Lucia became a story that people laughed about in private conversations. Her confidence, which once seemed unshakable, now had cracks in it. People started to question her decisions more carefully. And the biggest shock of all was the truth about LM. The simple artist she had once looked down on was actually the owner of one of the most respected galleries in Paris. Amara made her decision too. She chose to show her real artwork at Lucia. For the first time in a long while, she was free again. Her exhibition was full of raw emotion and honesty. Critics praised her return to her original style, calling it powerful and refreshing. They said it felt real. Vivian still runs her gallery, but things are not the same anymore. She still tries to shape artists into her vision, but now she hesitates sometimes. Now she remembers that she was wrong before. I still go to small local art festivals. I set up my simple booth and sell my paintings. I do it because I love it, not because I need to prove anything. Sometimes people recognize me there. They look confused when they see the same person who owns a major gallery standing in a simple outdoor stall painting quietly. Later, I even received an invitation from Vivian to attend one of her gallery openings. She said my presence would bring authenticity to the event. I sent her back a small painting instead, a simple sunset. It was priced at $200. With it, I wrote a note that said I was busy discovering real talent. I added that my grandfather would have liked it. Since then, something has slowly changed in the art world. More galleries have started looking for real voices instead of just famous names. Young artists are encouraged more to stay true to themselves. And sometimes even Vivian is seen visiting small festivals. She watches quietly, as if learning something she missed before. At those festivals, I still stand behind my small booth, painting like I always have. Because in the end, the most important thing is not fame, money, or control. It is truth, freedom, and staying true to who you really are.